Are the Seattle Kraken in a rebuild or nah? What's the verdict, according to some of our listeners and some of the analysts? Let's talk about it on today's episode of Locked On Kraken.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what do you say, Seattle hockey fans? Welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're bringing your favorite team, the Seattle Kraken, every single day. I'm your host, Erica L. Ayala, here for another episode. And, I'm going to get to some of your comments. I asked the question of the day, is this a rebuild? We keep hearing the Seattle Kraken say it's not. I'm not convinced that I believe that it's not, but let's go over some things. And there's a great article also for the Seattle Times, maybe asking the same question. So we'll go over that. We also got to hear from Mikey, Eyen, and Jani Nyman. So we're going to play some clips. Jani is so just fun. Another Finnish player with the Seattle Kraken. I mentioned on yesterday's episode that he was likely going to come up by the time that episode posted. The news had already been out, but we knew he was coming. And I'm going to let you hear from him what he thinks his greatest asset is and what he's been working on. I love it. I love it so much. Let's first talk about this Seattle hockey team. So again, yesterday I talked about and we heard I played some clips from Ron Francis. What is this team looking like? Talked a little bit about Joey Daccord looking a little rundown. Are we gonna see more Philip Grubauer? I'm all for it. So there was there was a lot that we put out there. So we had some listeners on YouTube respond. Striatic, in a real rebuild, they probably would have traded McCann and Alexiak. So this is an interesting comment because I cover a New York basketball team, the New York Liberty, and they were kind of really hell-bent on also not being in a rebuild when they were clearly in a rebuild. But at the time, the general manager used the term hybrid rebuild, and he used that term for at least 3 seasons before they even got competitive to get to the WNBA finals. I'm not saying that's exactly what's happening with the Seattle Kraken, but I think even without moving pieces like McCann and Alexiak, where that's all a wholesale liquidation, I think that there are ways to be in a rebuild without completely again, liquidating. And I do think that's where the Kraken are. Oliver Bjorkstrand had a year left before he was going to hit become a UFA, a player that is so dynamic. And when this Seattle Kraken team, or this team that we started the year with, when they were doing what they do best, Oliver Bjorkstrand was one of the players that could really shine. And it's not that, I mean, there's a lot that I mean when I say that. I just think that when you don't have the puck, when you are not bringing numbers forward, whether it's on the rush or just having a controlled attack in the offensive zone, you're not going to see everything that Bjorkstrand can bring. And similarly with Matty Beniers, these are guys that they are able to do a decent amount defensively, and their game pops the most when there is transition, when there are rush chances. And letting Oliver Bjorkstrand, or unloading Oliver Bjorkstrand, to me, if you don't want to call it a full rebuild, I think it's at minimum a hybrid rebuild. You're getting all of these draft assets because you know that there are more players that are going to be moved. I don't think that this team is going to just add players without unloading other players. And so we haven't gotten rid of McCann. We haven't gotten rid of Alexiak. I would keep McCann over Alexiak. I think Jamie Alexiak might be someone that we still see on the move. I think if it were Larson, if we're offloading Larson, if we're offloading Jaden Schwartz, then it is a like five alarm fire. But I don't know. Maybe that's just semantics. We had Stewart. Joey tired? Yes. Doesn't he, and then he talks maybe about something that he's dealing with from a health perspective. If so, prep and recovery are going to be hard, especially on the road. Rebuild? Yes. Do I think the team as a whole has bought into the Kraken? No. To me, going through the motions and once in a while getting a little fired up and a win, I hope in the offseason players work on endurance. My 2 cents and unprofessional opinion. Okay, I love that you brought up endurance actually in your comment, because I've been talking about that this is a Seattle hockey team that has not always looked their most fit. I do think, and I talked so much. I was at training camp. I talked so much about this team really opening up their legs. I asked Dan Bilesma if a part of that was to get the juice, the moxie going. I do think that this was a better equipped team coming into the regular season and utilizing training camp and the preseason as kind of a conditioning stint to open up the lungs, get the legs ready. I think it's the best that we have ever seen the team from that perspective. That being said, the lack of, I'm assuming, some kind of mental motivation has been endlessly frustrating this year. So whether it is an endurance issue, whether it is a mental block, thinking too much, gripping the stick too hard, there the yips of, I don't know, what's the hockey version of the yips? I don't know. Something ooh, something needs to be cleared. There's a cleansing that needs to happen from what is going on with this team. I don't know if that's a player attitude mentality thing. I think it's some of it. I think some of it is a coaching staff getting up to snuff. I think we can say that. And that's just an observation, speaking matter of factly with no judgment or agenda there. This is a Seattle hockey team that knows that they can do better. And we're going to play some clips from Eyen and Nyman, and Eyen in particular talked about underperforming. This team has underperformed. And Dan Bilesma talked about it today as well. Underperforming. That is the antithesis of where the Kraken want to be. And the Kraken are still, although not part of the playoff picture, are still searching and setting the expectation that they're going to tap into their best hockey. That their best hockey is ahead of them as opposed to behind them. I would love that to be true. And if that's true, then some of these young guys in particular, again, talked about it a little bit on yesterday's episode, are playing for maybe not just opportunity, but for roster spots. So I think it's going to be interesting. There was an article in the Seattle Times, came out, actually, I didn't see this the other day. It came out March 9th. Matt Hawkins saying Kraken better hope to find relevance before potential Sonics return. So there you go. Still the Supersonics and that coming down the pike, so to speak, and the impact that it might have on the Seattle Kraken franchise. People still thinking about it. I'm going to read you this open because I just really like it. The first three gaffs or paragraphs. The Kraken can sell tickets. We saw that right away. 10,000 of them went off the board 12 minutes after they were available in 2018. The Kraken can sell players. We saw this at the trade deadline. Center Jani and wingers Oliver Bjorkstrand and Brandon Tanev were all shipped out earlier in the week for draft picks. But can the Kraken sell their fan base on becoming a contender anytime soon? Because it still feels like they are at least a couple of years away. I agree with that. I 100% agree with that. And the bullish outward sentiment that this isn't a rebuild, that this is a team that wants to be competitive by next season, that this is a team that was expected to compete for a playoff spot this season. I don't know where the disconnect is. And yes, the injuries. It's not that they are insignificant, but they are not the full picture here. And the linguistics that we're hearing around this Seattle Kraken team, I'm not buying it. I'm not 100% buying it. I'm not 100% selling it either. But I can tell you I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm not faking the funk. I'm not buying what the PR, it almost sounds like PR to me, from the front office. I'm not buying that. We can dig deeper. There's more that needs to be done. And the moves that this Kraken team are making, to me, signal that they know that. That they know that something has to aggressively change. You know, yeah, I don't I don't know that I want to go any deeper than that because this is going to be an evolving story. But check out the article again. It's entitled "Kraken Better Hope to Find Relevance Before Potential Sonics Return." It also breaks down what happened, how we got to the playoffs in that second season and why it was untenable, right? Why it wasn't we weren't able to replicate it. So, interesting article. We'll probably refer to it a handful of times as we march on. But coming up on this episode, again, I want you to hear from Eyen and Nyman. They spoke to media today. So did Dan Bosma. I've alluded to some of his comments, but we'll hear from the two newest Kraken coming up on today's episode. Today's episode of Locked on Kraken brought to you by our friends at Factor. And if you're looking to optimize your nutrition this year, Factor makes eating well easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. That's huge. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences every week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle, whether it's calorie smart, protein plus, or keto. Factor even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfasts, and grab and go snacks to keep you fueled all day long. I'm a snacker. I love a good snack, especially a grab and go snack that's going to keep me on target with my health and wellness goals, and Factor has a little bit of it. I do remember, even before I really knew much about Factor, one of my colleagues, back when I was working a completely different industry, would often have some of the smoothies from Factor. So that takes me back for sure. So eat smart with Factor. Get started with factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 off and use code LockedOnNHL50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code LockedOnNHL50OFF at factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50OFF. And that will get you 50% off plus free shipping on your first box from Factor. Thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. Erica L. Ayala here. And, we got to hear from some of the newest members of the Seattle Kraken, Mikey Eyen and Jani Nyman. Eyen, 28 years old, former roommate of Will Borgen, as you will hear shortly. And, he was selected by the Kings in the 2016 draft, 142nd overall, 5th round from Colorado, shoots left. And, he spent some time with the Winnipeg Jets. He spent some time with the San Jose Sharks, Tampa Bay most recently. And this season, in 57 games for the Lightning, 5 goals, 5 assists for, as you guessed, 10 points, averaging 10:41 time on ice per game. And with the Seattle Kraken in 3 games, he has 1 goal, which is awesome. And, let's hear a little bit more from Mikey Eyen, one of our newest members of the Seattle Kraken.
I believe you were Will Borgen's college roommate once upon a time. What did he tell you about this place, if anything?
We see each other on the road for dinner here and there, and stay in pretty good touch. Family's pretty close, so we've always talked. He loved his time here, so I knew I'd be in a good spot.
What's it do for you to score a goal so early on in your career with the team?
It's nice to get it out of the way. You don't want to be plugging away for that first one for a while. So, we lost that game, but I guess that's a positive you can take from it.
How much pressure did scoring that first goal take off your shoulders?
Not really. I mean, I wasn't really feeling, pressure to score. Come from the role I had in Tampa. Just looking to, move up from there from what I was doing there, and so scoring was important for me, but not the end all be all. I mean, just helped the team win games. Like this team, I think, has underachieved, and we see how good we were against a top 2 or 3 team in the league in Washington. That's a game we play that same game 10 times. We might win a majority of it, so of those games. Fortunately, it didn't happen that way, but it's an exciting group to be a part of because of the underachieving. It's not there's a standard here, and there's still time in the season to meet that.
For those who have only seen you play for a couple games, how would you describe your game? What do you try to do on the ice?
We'll see. I'm trying to develop as a player still. Right now, I can bring a lot of speed, tenacity, stay on pucks, win battles, but there's more to my game that I feel I can show, and hopefully able to do that here.
So there goes Mikey Eyen. Pretty transparent that, the role that he played. And I listed, the different stops that he's had along the way. Ooh, excuse me, I got something in my eye. Listed a few of the stops along the way. He's a grinder. He's someone who, wants to be able to utilize his speed, be a little bit slippery, as I sometimes say, and to define his perhaps career with this opportunity here with the Seattle Kraken. About 17 games left in this regular season for the Seattle Kraken. So I'm curious to see what Eyen is going to do. But, it talked about playing a hard, heavy game. I think that's important. The Seattle Kraken has lacked sandpaper, as I've said. And Eyen, if he can bring a little bit of that while also not losing the skill, maybe like what we want a Ty Cartier to be. I'm okay with that. But we also heard from Jani. Yes, we do now have another Jani, spelled differently. Jani Nyman, another Finnish forward with the Seattle Kraken. And, English is an additional language for Jani. And some of his answers I found hilarious. So here are the best parts of Jani Nyman, and again, how he sees his game, and I like it.
My coach is the Firebirds.
Did you call your parents?
Yeah.
How was that conversation?
oh, this is the biggest, so big thing in my family and me, and my mom and dad is coming right now to fly into here, and we are so excited. Shoot the puck, like I'm big man, I want to play a little bit more physically, and yeah, this is the so good year. Like this is my first year here, and everything is different, but I like it so much. The Coachella is I think the best place, the American Hockey League, and yeah.
What part of your game do you feel like you have improved the most this season?
Oh, I think my skate. I'm a big man. And I of course I want to improve my skate a little bit more.
Jani, how did the practice today feel different than the practices in Coachella?
Oh no, so much more the same, but it's very fun time and great to be here.
Who's going to drive Coco to the rink without you?
Right now?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think he takes the Uber.
What a fun big guy. Just hilarious. I really enjoyed hearing Jani Nyman say, I'm a big man. He also said that because he's a big man, he's wanting to improve or has improved his skating. When we look at the when we look at the AHL, we'll talk about the ECHL in the next segment. Jani Nyman, at the time that he was called up to the Seattle Kraken, was leading all Coachella Valley players in scoring. 41 points. Ben Myers right behind him with 40 points. The breakdown there, though, also makes him the leading goal scorer on the Coachella Valley Firebirds this season. 26 goals, 15 assists. And yeah, he's a big guy. I like his size. 6'4", 217, left shot, second round draft pick. You heard him talk about Nikolai Coco now is going to have to take an Uber since he's not there. I think it's great that his family en route at the time of that recording, quite literally en route from Helsinki, Finland to see their son play. The Seattle Kraken will, of course, have a game against Montreal tomorrow, and then Utah and Winnipeg at home. So hopefully it's a trip well worth it for the Finnish family, the Nyman family. And I'm very eager to see what Jani Nyman can do on the ice. We'll talk more about that episode, we'll talk more about that game, a matchup against Montreal. And then actually it will be Zame who, following that game, so for Thursday's episode, we'll have your recap. But for the rest of today's episode, I'm actually going to give you a little bit of a check-in with some of our teams through in the pipeline. So we've got the AHL, our Coachella Valley Firebirds, and of course the Kansas City Mavericks. I just missed them in Tulsa, but we will give you the update because that's probably what we'll be doing for the NHL playoffs, at least, is following our teams and hoping that this is the year that they can go the distance. That's coming up on today's episode of Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken also brought to you by our friends at Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? If you're a big man like Jani Nyman, then crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is the highest protein nut. And each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. And whether you like no shells or you like to play around with the shells, they're a perfect snack on the go. Pack it in your gym bag, in your vehicle, or at your desk while you're recording multiple episodes of hockey podcasts. this is the perfect snack for you. So get snacking and get cracking, Kraken fans, with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, Seattle hockey fans, we got a big man coming up from the Coachella Valley Firebirds. But speaking of the Coachella Valley Firebirds, and when Ron Francis spoke to media, I talked about this just before the trade deadline. The Seattle Kraken affiliate, AHL affiliate, the Coachella Valley Firebirds are jostling for that number one spot in their division. So in the Pacific Division right now, the Colorado Eagles and the Coachella Valley Firebirds lead the table with 70 points. That being said, the win percentage better for the Eagles at a 6.48%, at 6.48%, whereas the Coachella Valley Firebirds have a 6.25 win percentage. So there you go. I mentioned Nyman is their leading scorer, so it's going to be Ben Myers that's still on this team. Gonna want to see a lot there. No, Philip Grubauer is not with the team. But that being said, the Firebirds did call up a goaltender from the ECHL. So right now they have Victor Osman, Alice Steska, and Nikola Koko as their goaltenders in their last game. 7-goal second period propels Firebirds to another win over the Wranglers. So this is a team that can score. And that's been the MO for the Coachella Valley Firebirds for the last handful of seasons. At times, their defense disappears. Also, they have a tendency. We watched the Calder Cup playoffs and finals last year, and I was very critical that their defense also disappears sometimes in the middle of the game. But, Victor Osman had 14 saves to pick up his first AHL victory. Osman, the third goaltender here now for this team. And it's just a really stacked offensive roster. And it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out in the playoffs. This is a team that will make the playoffs. Now, whether they are at the top of their division or not, still have a handful of games there to decide that. Before we close out today's episode, want to let you know it's more of the same also with your Kansas City Mavericks. They are trailing the Toledo Walleye in the standings at the moment. 82 points for the Walleye, 79 for your Kansas City Mavericks. And my local team here, the Tulsa Oilers, are jumping at the heels there. It's a 6.95 win percentage for the Walleye, 6.93 for the Kansas City Mavericks, and with 74 points in the standings, a 6.38 win percentage. So a little bit more cushion between Kansas City and Tulsa than there is between Kansas City and the Walleye, who are in that number one spot right now. So another team really looking roaring to go. Hopefully we'll be able to catch up with Kansas City during their playoff run. Tato Hat is always fun to have on the show. That's going to do it, though. I really appreciate those, as always, who are commenting on YouTube. And we didn't have a question of the day for today's episode, but we'll get back to that because I enjoy being able to incorporate some of those on the episodes. So thank you for those who chimed in. Is it a rebuild? Is it not a rebuild? Well, I guess we'll find out. If this team can make the playoffs next year, maybe it wasn't a rebuild. But I think it's going to take a little bit more time. And I think that should be okay in theory, comparative to where the team is right now. But if we take a look at the bigger picture, is it a failure if this team doesn't find their way back to the playoffs next year? You're just going to have to stay locked on Kraken to find out. Be kind to yourselves, be kind to one another, and loud and proud tomorrow. Hold fast, stay true. Let's go Kraken. I'll catch you on the next episode. Peace out, everybody.